effulgent.
Effulgent.
Translation. The inhabitants of the Vaikuṇṭha planets are described as having a glowing, sky-bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers, their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features very attractive. They are just the age of growing youths. They all have 4 hands. They're all nicely decorated with pearl necklaces with ornamental medallions. And they all appear to be effulgent. So we'll go on to the purport and the next verses.
Oh, okay. Why didn't you go ahead and let me mute everybody then?
Okay.
Give me a moment. Okay, thank you.
So purport. The inhabitants in Vaikuṇṭha Loka are all personalities with spiritual bodily features not to be found in the material world. We can find the descriptions in the revealed scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam. Impersonal descriptions of transcendence in the scriptures indicate that the bodily features in Vaikuṇṭha Loka are never to be seen in any part of the universe. As there are different bodily features in different places of a particular planet, or as there are different bodily features between bodies in different planets, similarly, the bodily features of the inhabitants in Vaikuṇṭha Loka are completely different from those in the material universe. For example, the 4 hands are distinct from the 2 hands in this world. So go on to the next verse. Text 12. Pravala Vaidurya Mrinala Varchasaha Parispurat Kundala Moli Malinaha. So you can see they have coral and diamonds. So many wonderful opulences here. So let's go to the translation. Some of them are effulgent like coral and diamonds in complexion and have garlands on their heads, blooming like lotus flowers, and some wear earrings. Purport. There are some inhabitants who have attained the liberation of sarupya, or possessing bodily features like those of the personality of Godhead. The Vaidurya diamond is especially meant for the personality of Godhead, but one who achieves the liberation of bodily equality with the Lord is especially favored with such diamonds on his body. So text number 13. Brajishnubirya parito virajate lasat vimana valibir mahātmanam vidyotamanaha pramadottamadyubi savijud abravalibir yatanabaha. Translation. The Vaikuṇṭha planets are also surrounded by various airplanes, all glowing and brilliantly situated. These airplanes belong to the great mahātmās, or devotees of the Lord. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions. And all these combined together appear just like the sky, decorated with both clouds and lightning. Purport. It appears that in the Vaikuṇṭha planets, there are also airplanes brilliantly glowing, and they are occupied by the great devotees of the Lord, with ladies of celestial beauty, as brilliant as lightning. As there are airplanes, so there must be different types of carriages like airplanes. But they may not be driven machines, as we have experienced in this world, because everything is of the same nature of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. the airplanes and carriages are of the same quality as Brahman. Although there is nothing except Brahman, one should not mistakenly think that there is only void and no variegatedness. This is really interesting point here. In the Brahma Samhita, we know that verse about, it describes Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sambrahma Sevyamanam, how there's millions and trillions of goddesses of fortune, and they reside in the in the Vaikuṇṭha planets. And it's described that they're not exactly consorts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they're actually the wives of the devotees. And they engage in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you can see that the men have forms like Narayan and the women have forms like Lakshmi. So that's really amazing. So the purport continues. Thinking like that is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Otherwise, no one would have such a misconception of voidness in Brahman. As there are airplanes, ladies, and gentlemen, so there must be cities and houses and everything else just suitable to the particular planets. One should not carry the ideas of imperfection from this world to the transcendental world and not take into consideration the nature of the atmosphere as completely free from the influence of time, etc., as described previously. Prabhupada always talks about these unfortunate impersonalists. They're the most unfortunate, and they can't understand transcendental variegatedness of the spiritual world. They're even afraid to talk about the beauty of the Vaikuṇṭha planets because they think, oh, this variegatedness must be material. So that's what they think, that this spiritual world is completely void, or in other words, without variety. And this is considered to be a bewildered intelligence by unworthy words. So this is their philosophy of voidness and personalism about the spiritual world, and it's condemned. Srila Prabhupada's condemning it because their intelligence is bewildered. How can they think that it's all void and, not any variegatedness? Just because, it's different than here doesn't mean that there's no variegatedness in the spiritual world. Because there's variegatedness in here, does it mean just the opposite? That there's no variegatedness? You can't compare the temporary material world to, transcendental world. So I think this is the end of the purport. Yeah. So those are the 3 verses we just went through describing this spiritual world. And can you imagine how far can we see with our own vision? We can speculate to know. How much can we actually learn, though? There's so many books, there's so many hypotheses, experiments, scientific research, relative truths. It goes on and on and on. But it's going on and on and on in the wrong direction. Why? Because what's the result? Just misery, confusion. But it's so amazing that they actually think they're happy until the material world humbles them and they find that there's an end to it. There's miseries, these adi-daivic, adi-bodhic, adi-atmic miseries. They do not know the aim. Actually, the aim is to go back home, back to Godhead. And they don't know why they're suffering. Just like Sanatana Goswami inquired from Lord Chaitanya, Kayami, Kani Amaya Jaritapa Traya. This was the question. But when we actually realize that we do not know, when we become humble, then we can actually, there's hope for us. Then we can take shelter of someone who knows. And what is that? The Guru, the Shastras, and the Sadhus. So here, my son was watching this one show called Cosmos. You probably saw that, some people. I just got a little bit inspired here. There's this personality called Giordano Bruno. He wrote a book called On the Infinite Universe and Worlds. So he was a personality that was inquiring, as the human form does. We've all throughout time, different ages. And he got ideas from reading different books from different personalities, like Lucretius. And he got information about an infinite God from Nicolas Acusa. This was in the 1600s. And this personality, Bruno, he actually wrote a book in the 1500s. This was like 1584, I think he wrote some books, the book on the infinite universes of the world. So he actually he had dreams of an infinity beyond this classical universe. He actually wrote, he said, the composition of our own star and world is the same as that of as many other stars and worlds as we can see. So imagine different planets and stars as actually having souls. And that's what he meant by having the same composition. And he used this cosmology as a tool to advance his belief in supernatural power and different things like that. So he had a vision of infinite space containing infinite populated worlds that were thrilling and beautiful. And so his ideas, you can see they completely belong to a different time. But he had profound intuition, but it had to wait 3 centuries to be verified by the spectroscope. But during his time, even though he had these dreams and these visions, he would actually dream and he would be floating out in space, and he can actually see different worlds in the universe, how it was, organized. And he had these ideas, but what he could see, he was kind of a mystic. It couldn't be verified by the mundaners of his time. So they actually started to punish him, and because his information was considered to be blasphemous, because it didn't tie in with what the church was teaching at that time. But just see how can anybody know anything? Our brains are so puny. But if it doesn't tie in with what the puny brains of the time are, then you're actually, it's a cause for punishment. Can you imagine what to speak of trying to understand Krishna? How can we understand Krishna by these blunt material senses? But he can reveal himself to the devotees if he's pleased with them, if they engage in devotional service. Srila Prabhupada wanted the devotees to engage in devotional service 24 hours a day. And he said, then everything will be all right. So see here what happened. He was burned at the stake in Rome in the 1600s for heresies and belief in other worlds. To see how people become so animalistic. They become fearful. Something they don't understand, something different. And Prabhupada always would say how their brain is so dull, they're rascal. They can't even understand that they are suffering. So this is kind of interesting how all throughout different times, and people are always trying to get different types of thought or doing different things that didn't tie in with other people. And if it wasn't the norm, then you were punished. We see the same thing in our line, like Haridas Thakur was canned in 21 marketplaces just because he was chanting Hare Krishna. Or Jesus Christ was crucified because, of his teachings. So many different things like that. We see it happens throughout time because people don't understand, because they're like animals. They are, with their puny brains, how can they understand? So now let's go back to the verse here today. We see Lord Brahma at the dawn of creation. And due to his austerities in the spirit of devotion, Krishna revealed to him Vaikuṇṭha Loka. To see, right in the beginning, he was revealed the goal. And what is that goal? It's a society of devotees pleasing the Lord and pleasing each other. And this is what Krishna was pleased by, that ta-pa. And then he revealed his dham. But we can see Krishna's dham just doesn't mean his place. I mean, it's not just like, okay, Krishna appears from you and then it's just Krishna, nothing else. You know, even in the voidus, they have to have some kind of image to show, like it's voidness, they have to show an Om in the sky or clouds or something. There has to be some kind of place. There has to be an environment. So this is the Dham, this is the environment where Krishna performs his spiritual activities with his devotees. But it's not just his Dham, it's actually his devotees too. And then there's wealth. I mean, there's the pastimes. And you could see the different pastimes of devotees. You can see their, as it's described in these verses, they have unlimited wealth. The glories of the devotees are being described here. Not just Krishna, but his devotees are being glorified, of their beauty, their opulences. But yet we see in Vaikuṇṭha, the devotees are so humble. They think that every other devotee is better than them, and they're ready to serve them with the utmost respect. I'm in the middle of class. Yeah. Just leave them, save for later. Okay, so, yeah, I just got a message here. So Krishna manifests his Dham. That's where his personal qualities are manifested to the fullest. And that's where our qualities become manifested. Our full emotions, our full nature, our full activities are manifested in this Dham. And this is what austerity is all about. This is, Lord Brahma was an example of performing austerities to be revealed to us the Dham. So in the same way, we have to perform austerities. What are austerities? Those are the activities that bring us closer to Krishna and farther away from this material world. In other words, to get out of here. Just like the Brahmin. What is his austerities? The greatest austerity a Brahmin can perform is to study very intently. The Kshatriyas, their austerities is to protect. So that's actually that's austerity, is performing your prescribed duties. And this is the different prescribed duties. The Vaishyas, their prescribed duties is economics and charity. And the Sudras' prescribed duties or austerities is to assist all the other ashrams, all the other varnas. So first Krishna reveals his Dham, the place where he's at, then his devotees, then he reveals himself, then his pastimes. So we have to learn to appreciate all these things. It's not just Krishna. We have to appreciate his place, the devotees, the Lord himself, and his pastimes. Just like now we're honoring and appreciating the pastimes of Sri Damodar. And we're glorifying the wonderful pastimes of Krishna in his childhood. And this is Kartik. It's a very auspicious time. The things that you perform here during this time, when you honor Krishna's, this particular, what could you say, activity at this time of the year, it's very auspicious. Just like you perform activities in the Dham, it's very wonderful also. Just like you chant one day in the Dham, it's like equal to chanting 3 years, practically. It's like thousands of times better. So we have to appreciate the Dham. And how do we appreciate the Dham? We can appreciate the Dham by cleaning it, beautifying it, remembering it, and glorifying it. So this is what we're doing by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. It's revealing the Dham to us. So we can see here the Vaikuṇṭha planets, they're beyond this material sky. And modern scientists, they're having difficulty even going to the nearest planet, the moon so-called, to say nothing of going to the highest planets within the universe, or even beyond. But there's no possibility that they can go beyond the material sky and enter into the spiritual sky. But the devotees were being revealed. We can actually go to this and see these places and hear about these places. And what is that process? Just like in the material world, if you're unable to go anywhere, to like a far distant place, you can't afford it by flying there or driving there, then you could only understand about that place by reading about it. So similarly, the kingdom of God in the spiritual world, we can only understand it through authentic descriptions of the Vedas and the Puranas. But unfortunately today, there's no education about that. As we mentioned, people are so dull and rascal, they can't even understand that they're suffering. They actually accept their suffering as enjoyment. And that's how they're rotting in the material world. So what is our whole purpose? The whole purpose, as Lord Brahma is revealing, is to get out of this suffering. And that's our aim of life, is to stop this suffering. And that's the whole purpose of the government, is to rule its dependents with that point. Same with the guru. Guru and government, the same thing. And those two things are required, is how to get pleasure to the Supreme Lord, how to get His mercy, and how to go back home, back to Godhead. That should be our aim. It's not that we're trying to make a plan, the whole government and the gurus making plans so that we can become happy in the material world. But it's not unless we go back home, back to Godhead. Then that's where we'll experience real happiness and peace. But in this place, there's no use in making adjustments. Why? Because it's confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Dukhalayam asasvatam. This place is just full of miseries. It's temporary. So here we see Srila Prabhupada. He is a great personality. The spiritual master. He's actually seen Krishna. Therefore, he can explain him properly. This is confirmed. Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi pranipatena pradiprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshanaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively and render service. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. And there's a nice verse that the pujaris say on the altar every day is Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param Sada Pasyanti Surado Deva Chakshutatam Tadvi Pasho Vipanyavo Jagwe Mam Saha Samindate Vishnu Yat Paramam Padam. Just as the sun's rays in the sky are extended to the mundane vision, so in the same way, the wise and learned devotees always see the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu. Because those highly praiseworthy and spiritually awake brahmanas are able to see the spiritual world, they are also able to reveal that supreme abode of Lord Vishnu. So we're very fortunate to have such a personality. So there's been many personalities throughout the time, and Ramanujacharya is also representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he also appeared to teach by his example and words the path to perfection and how to please Krishna. There's a very nice story I heard from Radha Swami about a nice pastime with Ramanujacharya, how he's teaching, his disciples and through his example in different ways. And there was one time when he wanted to take a journey to Sri Shaila, to go to Tirupati and get the beautiful darshan of Venkateswara. So he took some of his disciples with him, and they went to a village where two of his disciples lived there. One of them was a very wealthy businessman. His name was Yagesh. And then there was another disciple, I forget his name, Vardacharya. Yeah, I think his name was, it's Vardacharya. So he told his disciples, go to the wealthy businessman and tell him that we'd like to stay for the night. So they went and told him, and he was so excited, and he said, wow, my Guru Maharaj is here. So he started making all kinds of arrangements for him and, running around doing this and that. So then when the disciples came back to Ramanujacharya, so he asked them, so what's going on? What is he doing? He said, well, he's making all kinds of arrangements for you. He's very excited. And so he inquired, well, how did he treat you when you were there? And he said, oh, he was so absorbed in making arrangements for you, he didn't even treat us at all. He didn't even offer us water. And then Ramanujacharya became very upset. And he said, if he is not serving my servants, then he's not serving me. So we refused to go to his house. So then they went to his poor disciple's house, Vaikuṇṭha, and they were so poor that they would go out begging. And Vaikuṇṭha was out begging at that time when they showed up at his house, and his wife Lakshmi, who was a very, very nice, they're both very nice devotees. But Lakshmi, she was very beautiful actually, but they were very poor. So she greeted them very nicely and, gave them a nice sitting place and very nice words. And she said, why don't you go take your bath and then I'll have some nice prasadam for you when you get back. So they went, and she went into the kitchen and they didn't have one grain of rice. So she was like, what to do? She was in an urgent state of mind. So what did she do? She went to this rich merchant who actually was always lusting after her. And he wanted to give her things just so that he'd enjoy her beauty. But she didn't have anything to do with him. She was completely satisfied with her own husband. Even though he was poor, she thought of him as that was real wealth, is to have the association of a devotee, an honest servant of his guru and Krishna. That was a real wealth. So he didn't have nothing to do with this sinful merchant. So, but now, because of the urgent situation, she said, please, my Guru Maharaj is in town. We have to make some arrangements for him. So please give me nice foodstuffs and garlands and whatever we need, and I'll come to you tonight. And he's like, this is very good. I almost gave up. So he gave her all these nice foodstuffs, garlands, so many different things. And they enjoyed very nicely, served her spiritual master and his disciples. They're all very happily enjoying nice prasadam, so many different things he gave. So when her husband came home and he saw all these arrangements, he just barely had a few broken rice in his bag, and he was like astonished. How is all this? My Guru Maharaj is here, and all this wonderful prasadam, and all these beautiful things, arrangements being made. How is this possible? So his wife actually went up to him and told him, please forgive me, with her head down. She said, I was in a very emergency situation to serve our Guru, so I went to this sinful, lusty businessman, and he made all the arrangements, and I told him that I'd come tonight. And so it was amazing. Her husband just started to dance in ecstasy. He said, just see my wife. She is the embodiment of religious principles. She's completely happy and to do whatever it takes to satisfy the Guru. Because Krishna, he's the Supreme Purusha, he's the only enjoyer. And the only way that we can please the Supreme Enjoyer is to please the Guru. So he was very happy that she did that. So they took their prasadam, they took some mahaprasadam from the spiritual master, and then they told him exactly what happened and how they got all these arrangements. And he very patiently and intently listened. And he said, here, take him some of my mahaprasadam. And he gathered some of their prasadam too, so it's mahaprasadam. And he said, give this to the wealthy merchant and give it to him. So she came that night, and he was very happy to see her, lusting after her. She said, oh, here, some nice prasadam, mahaprasadam for my Guru, please. He wanted to give it to you. So he was taking the prasadam, enjoying the prasadam, and he started to look at her differently. He became purified, and he was like a child looking at his mother. And he realized that he was such a sinful rascal, and he actually begged for forgiveness, and he said, please, I'm so sorry. Take me to your Guru. I want to surrender to him. And that's what he did. He actually came and surrendered to her guru, and he took initiation that day. So this was the power of the association of devotees and the power of Mahaprasadam. And after he became, he surrendered and he said, please, I just want to serve you. I want to get free from my bad habits. And he realized that the only reason why he was there because of this couple. They're so very poor. And he wanted them to offer them great riches and opulences so that they don't have to suffer like that. But they actually refused. I mean, even Ramanujacharya was in agreement. He said, you should. You're devotees. You should use this in Krishna's service. Sudama Vipra did that. But then he said, no, please, Guru, just let us live a simple and hard life. And that way we could always just remember you and serve you without complications of wealth. And then that way we'll just remain a servant of the servant. And this was what they possessed. This is the real wealth that they possessed, is that they wanted to be a servant of the servant. So we can see in the spiritual world, as we're reading about, there's so many unlimited resources for the devotees. And everything is utilized for Krishna. And that's Vaikuṇṭha. So that's what Lord Brahma, he revealed that world through disciplic succession. The original position of the living entity is to utilize everything for Krishna. Everything is Krishna's, nothing is ours. He is the real Purusha, and we are the Prakriti. So this is the importance of associating with devotees. And just to conclude this story of Ramanujacharya, just before he left his body, he gave 74 final instructions, and they're all about serving the Vaishnavas. And just for example, he says here, one should feed them nice preparations and make them so happy they smile. One should massage their legs until they fall asleep. One should walk with them to the end of the village, and then 9 steps beyond, and then faint due to intense separation at leaving the Vaishnavas. So that was his main instructions, at the end. But then he left 2 main instructions, and that was surrender to the Guru and serve the Vaishnavas. So you can see from this pastime how, how we treat the Guru is how we treat God. And this is his representative, has come here to reveal to us. So now let's go to a whole other pastime here. Some of you may remember this, where this is. This is the manor in England. And this is very interesting how we can see this was given to the devotees by George Harrison. And once there was a reporter there, they were having a darshan, and one of the reporters asked Prabhupada if we worked. And Prabhupada said, no, we don't work. Why should we work? We are the sons of the richest man. And then he asked the reporter, he said, you see this manor? What do you think it's worth? And the reporter said, it's probably £500,000 or more. And Prabhupada said, so do you think that if you worked your whole life that you could have enough money to buy it? And he said, no. So Prabhupada said, well, you see, we don't work, but we got it. Someone gave it to us. So why should we work? We get everything we need. So this is a nice story, Sri Prabhupada says, about how, the devotees, who do we have? We are sons of the richest man, so why should we work? So can you imagine? In the spiritual world compared to the material world, you can't, in the material world, improve your economic position simply by working hard. It's not possible. But whatever you're destined to get, you'll get. So therefore, we should utilize our energy to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's the only thing. It shouldn't be wasted for anything else. Prabhupada also tells a nice little story about a potter. There was a potter who was planning, I have a few pots. And then he was thinking, so I have 4 pots, then I'll sell them, then I'll make some profit, and then I'll get 10 pots, and then I'll sell those 10 pots, and then I'll get profit, and then I'll get 20 pots, and then I'll have 30 pots and 40 pots, and in this way I'll be a millionaire. And then he said, at that time, I'll marry. and I shall control my wife in this way and that way. And if she's disobedient, then I shall kick her like this. So when he kicked the pots, and all the pots broke. So then his dream was gone. So similarly, Prabhu said, you see, we're just dreaming here. We have a few pots, and we're thinking we're going to increase so many pots, and then it's finished. So he said, don't imagine like that. Don't plan. So he said the guru and the government, they should be very careful that these rascals, they don't make plans to be happy in the mature world. But real life, real happiness is to become Krishna conscious. And for that purpose, we're following the example of Lord Brahma to undergo austerities, tapo divyam. So that way, by doing that, we purify our existence. So this is what we're doing. We're suffering in the mature world, and we're not meant for suffering. We're not meant for birth and death. So we have to undergo all these things in this mature world. So why? Prabhupada says, why? Why do you want to go like one? Now you're a big man, you may be a rich man, but in your next life, you could be a dog. Is that happiness? No, that's not happiness. So if we just simply try to please Krishna, then we can go to Krishna Loka. We can go to Vaikuṇṭha Loka. It's very, very easy. Actually, Prabhupada said there's only 4 things that you need to do. It's described in the Bhagavad Gita. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru. Just always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me. Offer obeisances unto me. And then you will come to me. So why? Why not accept this easy proposal and go back home, back to Godhead? So that's all that's required, just to please Krishna. So continuing this manner, pastime, we were listening to this in the memories. They were talking about the whole pastime here at the manor. And so we can see Srila Prabhupada here, he named it New Gokula, and he named the deities there Radha Gokulananda. And what did Prabhupada do there? Once he got some place, some facility, he made it into the Dham. And you can see the Dham can be manifested anywhere. Actually, everything is Krishna's energy. Nothing is ours. We think actually Maya is ours, but that's just our perception. But if we change our perception and we think differently, that actually this is Krishna's home too. Everything is Krishna's home, just like the entire universe is. It's Krishna's house. There may be different areas. There may be some inferior rooms, just like in a building or in a home, but yet it's all one home. So in the same way, the mature world, there's opulences here. They're achieved by materialistic persons by labor, but you can't enjoy them here unless you work very, very hard. But the devotees, especially the residents of Vaikuṇṭha, look at their enjoying these great valuable diamonds and jewels we're reading about. Their bodies are bedecked with them. And they're not achieved by working hard. How are they achieved? Just by the benediction of the Lord. So you could see that the devotees in the Vaikuṇṭha world, or even in the devotees in the mature world, they cannot be poverty-stricken, as it's sometimes supposed. They actually have ample opulences for enjoyment, but they don't need to labor to achieve them. And this is a perfect example of this manner which Srila Prabhupada had acquired. So here Srila Prabhupada was doing the first artik after he installed the deities. He personally installed the deities there. He asked Krishna to come. He brought the Dham down here. And Vishaka remembers that she was actually there photographing Srila Prabhupada when he was doing the first artik. She stood there. This is probably her picture. She's standing right there behind the artik tray. And she was wondering, she was just singing how beautiful and how elegant Srila Prabhupada was, making circles and offering the ghee lamp. And everybody was just like struck. And everybody was actually focused on Prabhupada. But Prabhupada was focused on Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda. So everybody was just like completely glued to Srila Prabhupada. But it wasn't about Prabhupada, it's actually the pleasure of the deities. and the pleasure of his spiritual master. And so when Prabhupada finished the artik, he started to circumambulate the deities, and his movements even then were very graceful and rhythmic, just for the pleasure of the Lord. And everybody was so engrossed in Prabhupada and what he was doing, that when he just gave a little movement, like his hand a little bit, just to indicate that please dance for the pleasure of the deities, then everybody, immediately they all danced in ecstatic, So everybody was so delighted to be a part of this historic event that took place there at the manor. So here's Srila Prabhupada. There's from another one of the memories, there's this other devotee, Bala Gopal Dasi, was remembering that how when you do personal service for Srila Prabhupada, she said that you felt like you were in another world. You were just so wrapped up in the service that you're performing. You're so intent on doing it that everything else actually, just disappeared practically. She said that, the whole world could have blown up around you and you wouldn't even have noticed. So this is Prabhupada who's doing artik, and he was personally involved in dressing, bathing the deities, and then Prabhupada offered prasadam, artik. It was they said there was just such an exceptional feeling just to experience all this. And then here's Srila Prabhupada circumambulating the deities. And she's saying that after, he started to circumambulate the deities, and then the whole temple room was, even though it was small, everybody was going around the deities. And he said it was just such an amazing, she said it was such an amazing energy that every time Prabhupada danced or he raised up his hands for people to dance, there was energy that that everyone felt that they're being lifted off their feet in this ecstatic energy. And to be able to do that with Srila Prabhupada, they said it was just so amazing. So you can see here, look at that. So it's described here how in Vaikuṇṭha Loka, the main principle of devotional service is hearing and chanting. It's very prominent in the spiritual world. And Prabhupada says how in the mature world, even an ass enjoys his sound vibration. But in the Vaikuṇṭhas, there's beautiful birds like the peacocks and the Chakravarti birds. But instead of hearing their own beautiful voices, they would rather hear the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everyone there is absorbed in Krishna. This Sankirtan movement, there's a nice song, Goloka Premadan, Harinam Sankirtan. So this Krishna consciousness movement was actually brought down directly from Goloka Vrindavan. And here we can see the chanting of the Hare Krishna going on amongst the devotees in love with Krishna. And that's not a material thing. It's actually imported from Goloka Vrindavan. Golokara Premadana. And that's, you see, the chanting is just all based on affection and love for Krishna. It's not like they're officially chanting there, but they're chanting. So this is a very nice prayer, reminded me of that. How we shouldn't waste our time, that song, but we should always be absorbed in chanting the holy names. That's so important. So here, Srila Prabhupada, after he did the bathing ceremony, and then he did the artik, and then they circumambulated the deities, and then he came and sat down on the Vyasasan. And it was amazing. Yogeshwar remembers, he says, his lecture was so energized. I mean, when he sat down, there was tears in his eyes. He was so, he was just so focused on Krishna and in love with Krishna. And then he said, Prabhupada said, there is another world, a spiritual world beyond this world. And then, this is Yogeshwar saying, and then he went on to describe in the most vivid, visceral terms the universe where Krishna lives, where souls dwell eternally in loving service to God. It was breathtaking. He just transported us out of the material world in a sentence. There is another world. And we were there. He could do that with a sentence because he was speaking from realization. Just see. So here's the same view. There's another view here. I brought this up because if you notice here, you can see on the altar there, right here, there's a Vyasa-san. And it's interesting how there's a pastime with that, where Srila Prabhupada was given a lecture in Conway Hall. And during, Prabhupada was chanting, and all of a sudden, Prabhupada started chanting, Narada Muni, Bhajavini, Radhika Ramana Name, Namamina Uditahaya, Bhaktaya Gita Same. So when the great soul Narada plays his string veena, the holy name of Radhika Raman descends and immediately appears amidst the kirtan of the Lord's devotees. So Prabhupada just started chanting this song. And the devotees asked Prabhupada what happened. He said, Narada Muni appeared. There he saw Narada Muni. So he said that there should be a Vyasa-san for Narada Muni on the side of the altar there. So that's still there, I believe. So there's some amazing pastimes. And Prabhupada revealed to us in the detail. He's given his Vedic literatures like the Brahma Samhita, which describes in detail the spiritual world. And even the Bhagavad Gita has given us how it describes Aham Sarvasyo Prabhavo Mata Sarvam Pravartate. That how I'm the source of all the spiritual material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. And also it describes how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can see, is greater than all, but is attainable by unalloyed devotional service. Although he's in his abode, he's actually present and all-pervading everywhere. So you can see, this is the whole, you see, from the spiritual world down to the material world. And no matter where you go, from the highest planet, the Brahmaloka, down to the lowest, they're all places of misery. So we shouldn't try to be happy here. And by the mercy of the Guru, we can actually get out of here. So here we are. It's our one universe. And you can see the planet Earth right in there. There's a sign that says, you're here. So just see how we can see the calculation of Brahma's time. We can't even calculate that in the Bhagavad Gita. It's described. But yet still, he comes, his time is limited. So if we go back to the spiritual world, in there, everything will be eternal. And we won't have to take birth again. There's another nature. It's unmanifested. It's eternal. It's transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It's supreme. It's never annihilated. And when all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. That which the Vedantists describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as a supreme destination, that place from which, having attained, one never returns. Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. So he's providing for the conditioned living entities and the liberated living entities. And we can read throughout the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam especially, we've heard of personalities who have entered into the spiritual world. Durvasa Muni, a whole pastime there. There's the 4 Kumaras. So we can see it is possible to enter that place, and it does exist. People have went there. And we can see here the 4 Kumaras there. They're seeing the Lord and his devotees and how they're living in Vaikuṇṭha planets. And how everyone there is transcendental quality of Suddha Sattva. And how these Vaikuṇṭha planets are very dear to the Vaishnavas. And for the progressive march of the Vaishnavas to go to that kingdom of God, Krishna actually helps his devotees to go there. Just like this pastime here. Very wonderful. So here, after attaining Krishna, the great souls or yogis in devotion, they never return to this material world, which is full of miseries, because they attain the highest perfection. So here is described in today's verses, there's airplanes. You can see the Vaikuṇṭhas are full of opulences. And airplanes are inhabitants, they're traveling with their sweethearts. And there's a breeze carrying very wonderful fragrances. And they're not so interested in smelling the flowers and trying to enjoy these things, but they're only interested in chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're more interested in that than their own sense gratification. And it's described there how beautiful the consorts are. They're very beautifully attractive, as mentioned in the verse here, and how the women, they're very beautiful, their figures, their faces, and how they're jeweled ornaments. But yet, it doesn't attract the men. So in other words, in the spiritual world, there's association of the opposite sex, but there's no sexual relationship, because they found a better standard of pleasure, where they don't need actually sex pleasure. And here it is. This is we can see the residence and the form of living in Vaikuṇṭha. We're hearing these descriptions. You see, everyone has figures like Narayan, their four hands, and how it's unique. In the material world, there's no such thing as four-handed people, but in the spiritual world, that's there. You can see there's flowers, everything is there. There's animals, there's birds, and they're all conscious. Everything is full of bliss, eternality, like that. This is the Dham. Even though, and they're actually serving the Dham there too. They're trying to clean it, make it nice, even though they don't need to. Still, that's seva, the Dham seva. And here we are. How there's a nice verse that Atashu Krishna Namadi Nababed Grayam Indriya Sevan Mukhi Jivadu Swayam Evaskurada, that no one can understand the transcendent nature of Krishna's name, his quality, his pastimes through contaminated senses. But we have to become saturated with service to the Lord, and then he reveals his pastimes. So here's our goal, our supreme goal. And Lord Brahma, he actually says that it's very regrettable that unfortunate people don't discuss the descriptions of the Vaikuṇṭha planets, but they engage in topics which are unworthy to hear and which bewilders one's intelligence. Those who give up the topics of Vaikuṇṭha and take to talk of the material world are thrown into the darkness, ignorance, region of ignorance. And he even said, Lord Brahma said, that the demigods, that they have forms that are much more powerful and beautiful than human forms. But he said that the human form of life is of such importance that we also desire to have such a life. For in the human form, one can attain perfect religious truth and knowledge. If one in this human form of life does not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his abode, it is to be understood that he is very much affected by the influence of the external energy. So here Brahma is condemning that those who do not take interest in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his Dham. So we should try for that. We should strive for that. We should take advantage of all the facilities that we have in the human form of life. The spiritual masters, like the captain, the human body is like a boat. So if we don't take advantage of these things, we're like committing suicide. So then we will, once we enter in the kingdom of the Lord, then we will be free from all these things. Our bodily would change in ecstasy. We experience the glories of the holy name by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here we have to chant very sincerely, without offense. And to help us chant offenselessly, we have to take advantage and take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because it's said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that if one only chants with some slight faith the holy name of the Lord, Chaitanya and Nityananda, he very quickly is cleansed of all offenses. Thus, as soon as he chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, he feels the ecstasy of love for God. And the devotees, what they'll do is enter into Krishna's pastimes. And they take birth where Krishna appears in the home of his devotees. So this is our goal. And this is what the Brahma is revealing and giving us the opportunity to take advantage of in this human form of life. It's so rare. It's so valuable. It's amazing. So we're very grateful to Srila Prabhupada and all the disciplic succession for bringing us this transcendental information from the spiritual world. Creating a Dham, so many Dhams here. The Dham that we saw in London at the Manor, Srila Prabhupada has done that in so many places around the world. And we're so fortunate to be able to have access to these places, and these books, and this knowledge, and these devotees, and this seva. So please, let's take advantage and help each other go back to this transcendental realm, beyond this material universe. There is another world. It does exist, Srila Prabhupada said. So thank you very much. Wow, it's already 15 after, so sorry. If there's any comments or realizations, maybe we can have them now. I didn't lose anybody.
Thank you, Gauda Prabhu.
Thank you, Ramananda.
Gaudaji, wonderful class. I want to ask a question. You spoke a lot about how wonderful the spiritual world is. You emphasize how Prabhupada was saying there's another world.
Yes.
You know, when Krishna says, parastasmat bhavavanyo, there's a whole other nature, and it sounds so wonderful. But our experience in this world is that, here, I'll grab them. Just going by. Sorry, my parrot was ready to attack a bride and groom. Okay. Hold on, stay there. So we experience in this world too often that things that are too good to be true aren't. And it's not like you can just, walk through a door and see the spiritual world or enter in. It takes really at a minimum a lifetime of tapasya. In Gita, Krishna says, Bahonan Jamananante, after many births, one will eventually come to him. And so yes. How do we have the faith? I mean, we're going to perform very great austerities, as did Brahma. We're reading a lot about his tapasya to obtain this. But some may think it's pie in the sky. So how do we get beyond that? I see that especially with our Sunday feast guests who sit and talking with them. They have no idea, the first time we're telling them about the spiritual world. It's like,
yeah, it doesn't tell you.
Too much to believe and too much to surrender, too much to risk for something in their mind that's uncertain. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, just like we're talking about Bruno, and he had these thoughts, but people couldn't believe. It seems like a pie in the sky. It's hard to realize until centuries later. So, we won't be able to realize that unless we take this process and become purify the consciousness so that we can actually see and realize and enter into the spiritual world. And that's why Srila Prabhupada has given us the process of devotional service, the association of the devotees, the transcendental literatures, and in that way there's some purification. And also the example of the different spiritual masters, the devotees, Srila Prabhupada, giving us their association so that we can approach them, inquire submissively, render service, they'll impart that knowledge to us because they've seen it. And if we gradually do that, we sincerely do that, then we will experience that, just like Prabhupada. I mean, he saw Krishna, he saw the spiritual world. I mean, he saw Narada Muni. I mean, so many things he was experiencing. He actually brought the Dham here through this chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So we have to take advantage of that, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And we can see here, if you look at this picture, I don't know if you can see it there, but if you see here, there's the rope here coming down from the spiritual world. This is the Hare Krishna mantra. Penetrates all the way down from the spiritual world, all the different places. So it goes down, it keeps coming down here into the material world. That's our key. That's how we get out. Take advantage of this. This is like a rope coming down from the spiritual world. It's descended. Loka Premadan. You know, it's manifested from the spiritual world. So we take advantage of that. And if we chant, it's described, we have to chant without offense. And how do we chant without offense? By taking shelter, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. And when we do that, then they freely distribute the love of Godhead.
I had a question.
Sure.
How come the one half of Vaikuṇṭha? Can you go back
Sure.
to the upper Parabyom? How come why is one half red?
I'm not sure. Can you? If I could read that.
I think there must be a reason because it's never been done before. I think somebody got some instruction.
I think that refers to the Lakshmi expansions on the red part, and then the Narayan expansions on the blue part. Because like there's expansions of Narayan and there's expansions of Lakshmi. I think they just wanted to show the differences there. So there's billions of other Lakshmis, just like there's billions of different expansions of Narayan. So I'm pretty sure that's what that is. But on the right and the left sides, there's actually the Brahma Samhita is described there, but I cropped it out because you can't even read it. It's so small. So, yeah, this was a description, a graphic that was put into the Brahma Samhita. I think one of the Brahma Samhitas that was published. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Ecstatic class.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So there we are. You see this whole arrangement just to fulfill our material desires, but yet at the same time, an opportunity to get out of here.
I think also if you look close, the Hare Mahamantra is coming out of Krishna's flute.
Oh yeah, probably, huh? Let's see.
Yes.
I think it is. Yeah.
I think. That is vibration.
Yeah.
Where does it start?
From Goloka Vrindavan. Yep.
Does it?
Let's see Krishna's picture. If you could see right here, there's Krishna right there, and between them, this is what's happening, coming.
And sometimes Radharani grabs the flute.
Yeah.
The other day, Narahari, you had the question about when Lord Chaitanya distributed Mahamantra to even the fallen souls, where's the question of freedom of will?
Yes.
So it reminded me of a story. I was telling Prabhupada that somebody asked me this question. I forget the point, but Prabhupada said, well, why didn't you say this? And I said, well, Krishna doesn't interfere with the free will of the jivas. And he said, Krishna does not interfere, but we interfere. So Lord Chaitanya is playing the part of a devotee. Lord Chaitanya is playing the part of the ideal devotee. So he interferes. He's Krishna that interferes. Krishna, incarnation in Dwapara Yuga, he did not distribute prema, he received prema, but Lord Chaitanya distributed prema.
Mm-hmm.
So he interfered. Is that a close-up of the... That's another Goloka.
Yeah.
Scene.
It's nice, Prabhu. Thank you.
There's Lord Chaitanya on the left side there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Lord Chaitanya has a abode in Goloka.
How was that? I've heard it was like half and half.
I also heard that in between, see, the spiritual sky is elastic. So Lord Chaitanya's Navadvip, Goloka Navadvip, Goloka Navadvip is in between Radhakund and Shamkund.
Huh.
Which makes good sense to my puppy brain. Because he is Radha Krishna combined.
Let's just go there and find out for ourselves.
Yeah.
Jai. We'll tag along with you. No hurry.
I won't wait for you.
Jai.
Sweet. Well, thank you, Godaji. You took us a little closer today.
Jai. Yeah,
By filling our hearts with wonderful, enlivening, spiritual Shabda Brahma that's lifting us. We'll never be the same after this class.
I feel very purified myself by your associations and the opportunity to serve you.
Hari Hari.
Yeah, so any other comments, questions, or I guess it's kind of late, huh? Sorry, Ramananda Prabhu.
Oh, that's okay. No problem.
But it's such an ecstatic month now. Shri Damodar, Shri Kartik Vrata.
Oh, you doing anything? Any extra service you're doing this month, Godaji?
Well,
any extra rounds or extra reading, anything extra you're doing to observe the Damodar Vrata?
Yeah, I'm trying to read more and get absorbed more in my service. So, but yeah, and trying to attend more as I can regularly to the temple. Sometimes
it seems every year the month of Damodar just gets sweeter and sweeter.
Yeah.
To where I'm looking forward to it each year. I don't know. You didn't used to look forward to it. It just kind of came up. Now, okay, this is the month of Damodar, but I don't know. It's really potent. And I especially noticed it last year, and I'm noticing it this year even more so. It's a really potent month.
Oh yeah. Yeah, whatever you do is multiplied.
And the good news is we still have, we're not quite midway. I think we're not quite, we have a little more than half to go. So let's really buckle down and take advantage of it.
Oh, halfway through the month, you mean? Because your voice got muffled.
Yeah,
there.
we're not quite halfway. We're almost halfway.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yeah, we're not quite halfway through the month of Damodar. So let's really take advantage of it because it's so potent and so sweet.
Yeah. Jai. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gauda Prabhu.
Great
Jai,
class.
thank you all. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
See
See everyone tomorrow.
Jai, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.